Hello, everyone. I'm Lumarie Suders, and I'll be facilitating today's Affinity Leadership Healing Circle for people of Latinx ancestry. As we begin, I would like to go over developing capacity coaching's mission, vision, and purpose. And our mission is to expand the capacity of leaders to do good, fostering a more compassionate, equitable, and just society. Our vision is all people, regardless of background, are thriving freely throughout this planet. And also developing purpose-driven leaders. And we do this through transforming personal leadership, building team capacity, shifting organizational culture, and leveraging data-informed decision-making. And we do this on the pillars of equity, love, healing, and justice. Developing capacity coaching stands in solidarity with our global family for the end of the pain and suffering of all forms of oppression and domination. We believe solidarity is the path forward for dismantling the interlocking systems of oppression that harms the people and our planet. And we're empathetic with our brothers and sisters on their community-specific quest for liberation. We're building a multi-sector, multi-generational, intersectional global movement for healing, freedom, and justice. As we begin, I would like to go over the norms for our conscious people for equity. And the first is to create the brave space, to be who you are in this space and feel comfortable in that. And it's also to be graceful with yourself and with others. Remember that this is a space for learning and not for judging. And sometimes that can be difficult as we come across things that are different. But remember, different does not mean wrong. Different does not mean not right. It just means that we have to be open to learning different methods for different reasons. And with that, that's where we go into our next one, which is think possibilities. We need to think of how we can and not how we can't. It is okay to live and move outside the box. It's okay to tear the box down and throw the box away. And then accept and expect non-closure. Sometimes our biggest frustrations can come from not managing our expectations. So we want to make sure that we're managing the expectation that sometimes we will not get closure for certain situations. And then it's also understanding that intention doesn't override impact. We have to accept responsibility and take ownership that sometimes what is meant with good intent is not received that way. And we need to ensure that when we are aware of that, that we acknowledge it and we adjust our actions accordingly. And then, of course, confidentiality. As we have these discussions, when we open up about things that impact us or how we feel about certain things, there's always a confidentiality that what is said amongst us stays amongst us, and we respect that. As we begin our discussion, I think it's important that we take note of a quote by Audre Lorde. And it states that caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. For me, the most important part of that quote is the caring for myself is not self-indulgence. And I think sometimes in this busy world, we can get wrapped up in all the things that we need to do for people. And we forget that we must do for ourselves first. Right? Sometimes life is just like that airplane ride. And they tell you in order to help somebody else, you have to put your mask on first. Well, taking care of other people means we have to take care of ourselves first as well. So know that it's okay. And it's actually a necessity for you to take that 5 minutes, that 50 minutes, that 5 hours that you need to pause and reset and refill your cup. So there's 2 questions that I'm going to pose to you today during our discussion. And if you could, Grab your journal. If not, just grab a piece of paper where you can write some notes down to reflect. And the first question is going to be, where am I unapologetically owning my identity, brilliance, and expertise? And the key word I want you to actually get from this question is the where. Oftentimes in life, we find ourselves fulfilling several roles. These roles are several different ones at work, several different ones at home. And in all these roles, we own that identity, brilliance, and expertise in a different way. And I think it's important that we actually take a moment to identify, are we really filling all three of those? And where are we doing that at? So, what I would ask that you do is take a moment and think of three of the roles that you fulfill in life that are important to you, personal or professional, or maybe one of both. And think, do you own the identity, brilliance, and expertise in that role? Maybe you only own the identity. Maybe you only own the brilliance and expertise. But take a second and think of the roles that you play that are important to you, two or three of them, and think of that. So go ahead and pause the video and write that down and reflect. So hopefully you have had time to reflect and write those things down and identify, where are you owning that identity, brilliance, and expertise, and where are you not? And what brings about this question for me, and why I chose to ask it and share it, is because I have recognized that there are certain roles that I absolutely own my identity, brilliance, and expertise. And there are other roles that maybe I only own my brilliance and expertise. And there's some roles that maybe I only own my expertise. And acknowledging the role that I identify all three in, opposed to the role that I maybe only identify own one of those things in, was really a reflective moment for me to really look at myself and say, why is this difficult for me here? Why is it in this role, it is so easy for me to own my identity, brilliance, and expertise? And in this role, I have trouble. What are those blocks that I see? Are those blocks real? Are those blocks self-imposed? Are those self-sabotaging blocks? And I think it's very important that we take a second to identify those things. And I challenged you that maybe once a week, or however often you feel it's appropriate, take a second and reassess your roles and reassess how you're owning that identity, brilliance, and expertise in those roles. And I say to do it every so often because sometimes the priority your the priority of those roles change. And as those roles and their priorities change, it might be more important to say, I really need to ensure that I own my identity here, that I own my brilliance here, that I own my expertise in this moment, because this is important to me, because of what I have going on, because of who it impacts. Which leads into our second question. So our second question is, how do I share owning my identity, brilliance, and expertise? And the key word here is, how do I share? Or keywords is, how do I share? And I think it's important here because you can share it in a variety of ways, right? I can share them through coaching. I can share them through mentorship. I can share them through teaching. I can share them by example. And I think it's important because as you look at the role and the importance of that role that it plays to you, you might need to understand that sometimes how you share it might need to be changed based off of who you are trying to impact. And for me personally, I find being an example to be the most important, right? To be the most important form on how I share it. And I will give the example of my role as a mom. And for me, as a mom, it is important for me to share, to own my identity, brilliance, and expertise. And I share that with my daughter by being an example for her, right? Because there's not always time where I'm going to be able to explain everything to her. But I know that if I show her how to move in spaces, how to talk in spaces, how to show up in spaces by example, that she can pick that up. And then there's going to be a time when she gets to a certain age that maybe I go into mentorship or to coaching or to teaching her that. But I think example is a universal language that no matter what level you're on is received and even can impact people you don't even know you're impacting, right? Because sometimes it's the person that has been watching you, just looking at how you're in a space that they never thought they'd see a person of maybe color in that space, or they never seen a woman in that space. And you're providing an example for them. So when we provide these examples, when we show up as coaches and mentors and leaders and teachers, it's important that we own every part that makes us the perfect person for that position. So take a moment and think of those roles and think of how you're sharing that, how you're sharing your ownership. So hopefully you have taken that moment, and hopefully these two questions have given you something to contribute to your routine of self-reflection, of how you're doing, what you might need to adjust, and how you can move forward better. And part of how you move forward is not about what you do in one big random gesture. It's about what you do consistently to maintain and sustain yourself. So here, what I would like to do is to tell you two things, right? There's two ways that you can sustain yourself. One is you can do it through natural pauses, right? And I give the example here is the other day, I was having a very rough moment, and the natural pause came to me in traffic. I got stuck in traffic, and instead of using foul language and slamming my fist on the steering wheel because I was going to be late, I stopped. I appreciated the pause that the traffic gave me. I turned my music down. I took deep breaths. I thought about how I was going to set an expectation for my day, set an expectation of productivity and peace. And I recentered myself in that moment of traffic that normally would make you more give you more anxiety, but I used it to my benefit. So take advantage of those natural pauses that you find yourself in. And the second way is set an alarm and give yourself a moment, set an alarm, whether it's first thing in the morning or late in the evening as you're winding down for the day, and set an alarm that gives you 5 minutes to yourself or however you see is appropriate that can fit into your schedule, but you can fit it into your schedule. Make yourself a priority, make your peace a priority, and use that time to practice gratitude, to write in your journal, to meditate, to bring yourself back to a place of reset so that you can continue to be in a space where you can optimize how you're operating in life and how you're operating in a space that you see appropriate for yourself. Lastly, I leave you with a quote from Dolores Huerta that states, "Every moment is an opportunity, every person a potential activist, every minute a chance to change the world." I think that is incredibly important because as we do our own self-work, you never know the impact that you can have on the person that's walking by, on the person that you think is not paying attention, but really is. How one sound decision can have a domino effect that impacts so many things. So I challenge you to make every moment count. Lastly, I ask that if you have time, take our assessment, share your thoughts, share your feedback, and I wish you all the best in your journey of healing, in your journey of growth, and in your journey of unapologetically owning your identity, brilliance, and expertise.